Hello, dear soul. Welcome to Calm Sleep. Tonight, we will listen to the story of a little boy named Sully and how one incident changed the course of his life forever. But before we begin, I would like you to take a deep breath in. Hold this breath for a couple of seconds and then gently let it out. Keep breathing in and out for a few more seconds and anchor your focus on your breath. Allow your thoughts to flow as they wish. Focus your attention on your breathing and on my voice. And while you do so, let your body relax. Adjust your position on your mattress until you feel fully comfortable and supported. And then, just lie still. Listen to my voice and gently focus on your breathing. And now, let us begin with our story. Sully was one of those little boys who seemed to have grown up on the streets of the big city where he lived. He never remembered a mother or a father, nor anyone who ever took care of him with love. His first memory of tenderness was that of an old woman who had given him a crust of bread and had let him sleep in the corner of her room. One day, they carried her away, and since then, Sully had slept in doorways and alleys. He earned his bread and butter by selling newspapers, and sometimes, when he did not have enough money, he had to steal to satiate his hunger. He was often cold, and he seldom had enough food. But he saw many other children that were in the same condition, and he did not suppose that anyone ever had enough to eat or a warm place to sleep every night. Sully often attended the meetings held by the Salvation Army when they were in his neighborhood. He went in there because it was warm and because there he felt protected from the chilly winds outside. While he was there, he could hear people talk and sing about someone who loved them all and who would help anyone if they asked him for it. Sully could never gather where this person lived, though, so he could never go and ask for help. One day, Sully saw a lady who was too well dressed to belong in his part of the city, and he followed her, thinking that she might have a pocketbook he could take. The opportunity did not offer itself, however, and before Sully realized it, he was in a part of the city he had never seen before. The buildings were tall, and the streets were much cleaner compared to where he lived. Sully walked along, looking in the windows of the stores with amazement in his eyes. It was then that he noticed a lady standing beside him with a jeweled watch hanging from her belt. He had never seen anything so beautiful or so easy to take, and he waited for a few more people to gather around the window. And then he carefully reached for the watch, and with one pull, off came the trinket, and away ran Sully like a deer, with the watch clasped firmly in his begrimed little hand. On and on he ran, not knowing where he was going, nor caring for that matter, and it seemed to Sully that the whole world was pointing at him and chasing him. After a while, the noise grew fainter and fainter, and he stopped and looked back. There was not a person in sight. Sully looked around him. All the houses were large, with clean stone steps in front of them. Sully sat down on the bottom step of one of these houses and looked at his treasure. He held it to his ear and heard its soft tick, and then he looked at the sparkling stones on the case. He opened it and watched the little hands move. Then he opened the back part, and there was the picture of a baby, a little boy, Sully thought. Around its chubby face were curls, and its eyes were large and earnest-looking. Sully sat, gazing at it for some minutes, wondering who it was. When he looked up, he saw a large building across the street, with a steeple on it, and on the top of that, a cross. The door of the building was open, and after a while, Sully walked across the street and up the long, wide steps. He went in and looked cautiously about. It was still, and no one was to be seen. There were 2 doors, and Sully went to one of them and pushed it open. He thought for a minute he was dreaming, for he did not suppose that anything so grand could be real. There were rows and rows of seats, and at the very end of the big room, Sully saw a light. He walked down one of the aisles to where the little flame was burning and stood in front of the altar. Sully looked at everything with a feeling of awe, but he had not the slightest idea of what it all meant, and he wondered who lived in this beautiful house, and thought it strange that no one appeared and told him to go out. There were pictures on the wall, and Sully came to one of a sweet-faced lady who was holding a little child. He started and stepped back as he looked at it. "It is the baby in the watch," he said. "This must be where he lives, and that is his mother." Someone was coming. He was caught at last, he felt sure. He slid into a pew and crawled under the seat and kept very still. So still, in fact, that he fell asleep. When he awoke, a light was burning in the church, and its rays fell across the picture of the mother and child in such a way that the eyes of the mother seemed to be looking straight at Sully under the seat. For the first time in his life, he felt like crying. He wished that he had a mother who would hold him lovingly, just like the lady in the picture was holding her child. And maybe his mother would tell him how to take the watch back to its owner, because now he felt guilty. Sully crept from under the seat and stood up, and coming toward him down the aisle was a man. Sully thought he wore a queer-looking costume, and he dodged back of the seat. But the man had seen him, and there was no use in trying to run away. Besides that, Sully was not at all sure that he wished to get away. As he neared, Sully asked the man whether this was his house. The man replied that it wasn't his house, but rather the house of God. Sully's heart leaped with joy, for that was the name of the one the Salvation Army people told him about, who loved everybody and helped you. Sully asked the man if he could please see the man who he was talking about. The good man looked at Sully very earnestly, and then he said that if Sully could tell him what he wished to see God about, he was sure he could help. Sully told him about the watch and that he felt sure the lady lived there, as the baby in the big picture was very much like the picture in the watch. "And if this is God's house," said Sully, "I thought he might be the father and forgive me. I'm very sorry that I took it." The good man took Sully by the hand and asked him to come with him. He said that he was sure that Sully was forgiven. Sully was given a good supper, and for the first time in his life, he slept in a real bed. The next day, the good man found the owner of the watch, and when she heard Sully's story, she forgave him. Sully was placed in a school where he learned to be a good boy, as well as to be studious, and he soon forgot his old life and habits. He grew to be a man of whom any mother could have been proud. But the only mother Kid ever knew was the mother of the little boy in the picture, which he cherishes and holds very dear to this day. That was the story for tonight, a story of resurrection and the chance to live a new life. Now go to sleep, my dear, because tomorrow is going to be a new day and your chance at a new life. Have a beautiful night.